Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. Today's guest is Kathy Reese. She's an elementary school teacher and an evidential medium. She's also the co-founder of BetweenTwoMediums.com and a YouTube channel of the same name. Her readings bring forth messages from the other side as well as verifiable evidence of who they were in life. In this episode, we'll talk about her goal to normalize spiritual connections, make mediumship acceptable, and confirm a deeper truth. Life continues beyond this one, and we are never really alone. Kathy, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I don't think we've met any elementary school teachers who are evidential mediums, but I'm sure there's probably plenty lurking in their spiritual closets.
We kind of keep it quiet because of the misconceptions.
How did you first notice the skills, the mediumship skills?
I first identified it as mediumship skills in my very late 40s, early 50s. That's when I actually put a name to what was going on. But I can tell you that this all started back as a child where I didn't understand what was going on. So I had these horrific dreams, very scary dreams. And every dream had the same recurring character. So then also, I always felt like off to my side, right outside of my peripheral vision, I always had somebody there. So as a young child, feeling like I could always sense something here, I was early in my marriage still having these dreams. Actually, I had both my children still having this sense and not knowing what it was. And it wasn't until I went to an acupuncturist for the first time. He asked me about my dreams, and I would not talk to him about it. So he picked up on something, that there was something there to try to get out of me, and I would not. He also had dreams, completely different reason. He was a Vietnam vet, but he told me how he managed his dreams. And Johnny, from that moment, I knew I would never have another dream. He made me go from fear to curiosity. And so then I became curious about this, and I wanted to have another dream at that point. And it led me to reading about it and learning more. And over the years, it's just evolved. And it's amazing when I look back at this path that I was on and I didn't even know I was on it.
So at one point, did you start getting messages from the other side? Was that from childhood or?
No, not in childhood. In childhood, I was fearful. I didn't want to think about it. I think when I really noticed my intuition and started paying attention to my intuition, I do think we all have it, right?
Right. That's what I've been told.
Yeah, for sure. But I started paying attention to it a little bit more. And I'm telling you, it was my late 40s. So I think really listening to my intuition has really opened the door to me really getting these messages. And then I started writing.
When you were writing these things, were you aware of what you were writing, or was it more like a scribe for spirit type thing?
I did not. That's when I thought I was kind of losing my mind a little bit. I actually felt an urge in my arm. I had to sit and write. And things just came out that I thought must be for other people.
The automatic writing thing does come up. It is the type of thing where you either feel an urge, is what I'm told, or at sometimes you just start writing and you wake up the next day and you don't even recognize it, but it was obviously your hand. A woman I interviewed a while back called herself a scribe for spirit. And since then, I've heard this come up a number of times.
I think it's an easier way to start, to try to tap into whatever you're tapping into, whether it's evidential mediumship or just hearing messages from your true self. I highly recommend it for anybody. It's actually a great strategy for just managing stress and anxiety. But it did evolve into messages. It did evolve into something more than just random writing.
You recommend this for a lot of people because it's a good way to manage stress. So were you talking about the mediumship skills or being a sitter at a mediumship reading?
My mediumship skills. However, I do think writing is a great way for everybody. It's a tool for everybody. But for me, it was for my mediumship skills.
Okay. Now, the messages that you get, are these auditory? Is it telepathic? How do they come through?
For me, it's really using all your senses. But for me, I see things like clairvoyantly. I don't believe I am actually seeing the actual person or item that they want me to see. I think they're putting images in my mind to get me to say things. I could see a pair of wingtip shoes and fancy socks. So I can then describe, well, this person was a sharp dresser and he kind of had a unique style to him.
From what I'm told, it's like you just said, it's images and things like that. A quick example would be a friend of mine whose mom passed, I believe she was in her 90s. The medium brought up something like, I'm feeling pain in my leg, and his mom had a real issue with one of her legs. That's a good example of how these things come up.
I think that's a common. You can feel sometimes congestion in your chest or you start coughing. Yeah.
Can you give us an example of an evidential reading that you've had?
Sure. I just had a recent one that to me was so incredibly cool. So I sat with this woman who wanted to hear from her mother. Now, I set my intention to bring to her mother, but understand that it's whomever comes through first is what we do. And when you go into a reading, Spirit has their own plan. These loved ones coming through have their own plan. I'm bringing it through evidence, though, of her grandmother. And so I bring through enough evidence of, well, that's my grandmother, not my mom. I'm like, okay, well, can we continue with your grandmother for a little bit? And she was very close with her grandmother. And this grandmother had all the feels. Like I could feel this intense, close relationship. It wasn't just a relative. This was somebody that was very intimate with this woman and very loving towards her. The grandmother that came through said her message was, I'm here to hold your hand for this thing that's going to be a little bit difficult. So I'm saying this, but I even stopped and said, I have no idea what she's talking about. I'm not feeling anything difficult, but I literally could feel like I needed to hold this girl's hand. And so then in steps a gentleman. So now I'm like, okay, so I have this gentleman here and he is sorrowful. He feels very sorrowful. And I went into how he passed. He passed at a premature age. It was avoidable. It was a lack of care of himself and making not good choices. And then he acknowledged how it left her feeling so vulnerable growing up and that his selfishness left her feeling inadequate. And it was about the ownership that he took, that he's voicing to her, that he owned it. It was his issue, had nothing to do with her value and how he missed out on the opportunity to have her in his life the way he could have had her. It was a very somber reading, very heartfelt and tearful on the sitter's behalf, but she was able to take all the information. And I just felt like it was such a sincere acknowledgement from him that I could have done better, I should have done better. And the acknowledgement of how that negatively affected her self-worth.
Who was the gentleman?
It was her father, Alan. And she said she acknowledged all that. And he said what he needed to say, and it kind of felt done, and in stepped her mother, which she was a hoot. Like, she was such a different energy and so bubbly and very mama bear, protective over this girl and everything. I bring that reading up because I thought that was very clever on the people coming through their spirit's behalf. The grandmother knew the dad was going to come through and for healing purposes. I think this girl needed to hear some acknowledgement on his end. And I think it was healing for the woman sitting in front of me. And then the mother came through.
That example you just gave us, is that what you mean by these messages that come through help us evolve? Is it the healing? Is it resolution? What exactly is it?
I think it's everything. It's the healing and resolution. I think it can bring a sense of peace. Hearing these messages, I don't know how it would affect the sitter, but the feedback that I get often is, I didn't know I needed that, or I wanted to hear from this person, but it made me feel better to know that they're at peace. I think it has the potential to bring peace and forgiveness. I also feel like it can actually further a relationship. It can acknowledge what they had and see that it's still there. That relationship is still there.
When you say that these readings, the messages, help us evolve, the entity that's coming through, they have no real motive to be disingenuous. It's usually a message that can help resolve something or bring healing or bring peace.
100%. I think that's the intention, is for the highest good of whoever is sitting there in front of them, what they need to hear.
All right.
I think it's for healing.
Okay, good. Now, you also work with another medium, actually an Akashic Records reader. That's an interesting combination. So how does the dynamic of working with someone who reads the Akashic Records as opposed to just working by yourself?
Well, I think it goes back to the purpose of us trying to normalize this. We're just two normal people, and these are just two ways in which you can engage with spirit, however you want to identify spirit. So I think the demonstration of the Akashic Records, which is different than evidential mediumship, the difference brings to the people sitting in front of us who come to our events, it gives them a sampling of what is possible. There's lots of different healing modalities. I think people normally think of mediumship, or they think of Reiki, or they think of other ways people connect. We're trying to normalize it. So bringing an Akashic record, reading in with an evidential medium, reading is our way to demonstrate that there's simple ways that we can connect easily. And it doesn't take crystal balls and all kinds of woo-woo stuff.
Okay. You think crystal balls. Okay. Yeah. That does work for some people. So when you work with this woman who's an Akashic Records reader, in my experience, in that modality, sometimes ancestral beings and even past lives come up. Does that ever come up when you two work together?
Oh, sure. When she does her readings, for sure, that comes up. And that's the nature of it. Think of Akashic Records. When you open it up, it's a collective source that comes together. It's less about who is delivering the message. It's about what the message is. And you can ask questions with Akashic Records too. Not yes and no questions, but you could ask, like, what do I need to know for my highest good? Or what from my past life is affecting me in my current life? And so we wait and see what the messages are for that. So Akashic Record reading complements what I do, I think, because if I'm strictly just bringing through loved ones, that's a little bit deeper. It's quite an amazing experience to get an Akashic Record reading and to watch somebody do the Akashic Record reading.
You brought up something earlier in one of your examples where the message, you didn't seem to know what it was, but in some cases, weeks or months later, the sitter comes back to the medium, calls them whatever, and says, hey, I know what you meant by the blue dress, for instance. So that's even more important because you're not just picking stuff out of the air and trying to make some sense with it.
Correct. But in an evidential mediumship reading, you do want to get most of your evidence. The sitter will understand what it is at that time. You don't want to keep throwing out things and saying, oh, down the road you'll understand. Because the point of the medium coming through is to bring a message, and messages typically are not evidential. Messages are a little bit more broader. So yes, that happens where they come back and say, we couldn't understand this and now I do. But you want most of your reading to be something that they can understand in the moment.
Well, I think in that example, neither one of you know what it is. And the sitter will hopefully remember it and then have an aha moment later on and think, oh, I know what this person meant by that. So I think that's definitely valuable. So what are some of the misconceptions about mediums and, for that matter, the spirit world?
The people who come to the readings come with all different kind of backgrounds and belief systems. The spirit coming through they don't know everything. They just know from a whole different perspective. They're just able to look at their life without the human constraints. And so that's why their perspective broadens. I don't think they know the answers to everything. So that's a misconception that I'm going to be bringing through evil spirits. or they're going to be staying with me after the reading. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for me. I don't ask for that. I also think heaven, the idea of heaven being in a separate place, like it's a geographical location, my experience tells me it is so not. Heaven is right here with us.
Okay, you took the words right out of my mouth because that's what I've heard, and which goes hand in hand with we are never truly alone. Every time I've asked a medium about our friends and family when they pass, where they go, and every single one says they're probably right here next to you. It's in a different frequency because everything's about frequency anyway. We can't see them. With the spirit world specifically, what is your practice and your experience taught you about it?
Oh, peace. I think peace. I think my mediumship skills, learning this and understanding that I still don't understand how large this is. Like there is something much more than just us in our world here. I'm not even sure how to answer that question. What has it taught me? I feel like I worry less. Death is a misconception. I think we do die and our bodies die, but we do not. We move out of our bodies, but we are still the same person that we were. We still had the same mistakes. We carry the same love. I'm not afraid of dying anymore. Am I sad when people die? 100%. I think it's worse for those of us that are still here. But I know they are fine. They are continuing on. They are still around. We just can't understand how that all can be. I just feel like don't try to understand it. Just enjoy the trust that it is.
Good point. Now, you've had physical mediumship experiences. That could be kind of scary. What is that like?
Utterly jaw-dropping. I've been with other mediums, and we had the intention of seeing what happens. I had never had a physical mediumship experience until I did. And you're blown away. And we have to remember that this is an intelligence. These were people who were here. They have an intelligence even when they pass. They can communicate with us. They have energy. They take our energy and they can move things. And this sounds crazy, but we've actually had a table tap out the alphabet to talk to us. In physical mediumship, though, I've seen a physical body. I looked over and you see it and you don't see it at the same time. But because it's not a solid body, and we have the kind of understanding with other mediums that unless we all see it, it didn't happen. But we also can't say, oh my gosh, do you see that person standing over there or sitting in that chair? It's usually we say, oh, look over in the corner. And then if we all end up seeing the same thing, then we all see it.
Really good point, because you're not tempting anyone to say, oh, yeah, I see that too. You
Yes.
just say, go look in the corner, go look behind you, whatever. Interesting.
And I think with physical mediumship, it's with the intention. You want them to engage. You set the environment for them to engage, which is happiness and joy and high energy. It is not somber. You don't have to sit in a seance kind of fashion. It's happiness and joy. It brings up your energy. It helps them use our energy to be able to manipulate whatever happens. I've seen a table fly up in the air on its own.
So you mentioned something about intelligence, right? These spirits that come through, do you think they have the same attitude, sensibilities as when they were here on Earth?
For sure. They cuss. There are people that are very humorous. There are people who were depressed here, but they're not depressed now, I don't believe. But yes, I get cussing. I don't normally cuss a whole lot, but boy, the F word can fly out of your mouth when you're doing a reading. But that's a piece of evidence. The humor, the jokester.
The jokesters.
Oh my gosh. I had a reading where this lady's husband came through and he was a little dirty-gurdy. He was playful. But it was, do I say this out loud? I just say, do you understand that he was very playful and they're very much the same personality? I think that they're more evolved, so they may have a better understanding of themselves.
Can you imagine a world where mediumship readings and Akashic record readings and shamanic journeys and things of that nature are actually normalized?
Honestly, I feel like we have to stop thinking that we know everything and that there are edges to our knowledge. Everything in our world is identified. It has a name, and that puts an edge to it. I think if we stopped thinking like that, or took a second and thought, what if this was possible? What if there is more to me than my job and my role in this world? I think it's going to take that moment of being open to something, even though you don't know what it is. I think it's going to take that, and some people are going to be ready for that, and some people aren't.
The single most important thing that this whole journey has taught you, is it we're never alone, or is it that consciousness, our souls, our essence keeps going?
And I think it's more of the consciousness keeps going, but defining what does keep going mean. We continue to live beyond what we call death here. We completely continue to evolve. And I think that is the most beautiful, most exciting, most comforting thing to know, is that even though we don't understand it, it's not defined. Afterlife is not defined for us, but it is there. And I don't think we're meant to understand it. I don't think we have the capability. And I think that is the most beautiful thing about doing this.
I would think so. As John Lennon said, I don't believe in death. It's just like getting out of one car and into another, right?
Yes.
Kathy, thanks so much for joining us tonight. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
You can find me at kathyreesemedium.com. It's Kathy, Kathy, or betweentwomediums.com.
I'll put those links in the show notes and the transcript as well. You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. In the meantime, you can find more info at closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.